It's an incredible schus to Mirz Hashem continue in our limud of the Piagetz and the Sefer Bnai Machsha Tova. Just to thank our sponsors for tonight. To thank Steve, was it Mr. Zwani for both? Mr. Zwani? To thank Mr. Galaskov and Mr. Zwani for sponsoring the Machsha this evening. A tremendous yashar. Thank you. Always a very special thank you to Reb Tzvi. I'll say again, I can't say it enough. Tzvi does this on his own each and every week. And if you notice, by the way, the offering changes each and every week. Like, it's not like we get the same thing. You could be choshesh that there was leftover, he froze it, he this, that. Mamish, literally, again, the menu varies each and every year. Just for the record, I just want to set it straight. It's not chili. It's just very liquidy cholent. I feel it's important. To set the record. You can't have a Heimish shir with chili. Reb Tzvi, thank you. Really, week in, week out, everything is so beautiful, so wonderful, so delicious. So thank you very much. And also, we wish a mazel tov to Baruch Fischl on the birth of his grandson, Baruch Hashem, whose bris will Mirz Hashem be this coming Shabbos Shuva B'Shah Tova Mitzlachos. We wish a mazel tov to Rabbi Chaim Spiro on the occasion of the birth of his grandson, Baruch Hashem. Chaim, when's the bris? Tuesday? Thursday. B'Shah Tova U'Mitzlachos. Mazel tov. Thursday. What time? Is there an omelet station? So really, so beautiful, Baruch Hashem, to see the beginning of the new year and the beautiful simchas together. And of course, we dedicate our learning tonight in the schus of all of those who in Florida who, are now going to, it's overwhelming to see, and it's such an incredible musar to be able to see in these opening days of Rosh Hashanah. We'll say in Nisana Tokef, so we speak about, again, mi bara'ash, who's going to die in an earthquake, and we see natural disasters, and it's an incredible thing because nothing humbles a person more than natural disasters. Because we advance, right? We advance, and we have this account. We can reach the moon, right? We can reach the moon. We can reach beyond the moon, right? We could see into distant galaxies, and yet, amazingly enough, just when the wind goes a certain way, right, and the ocean turns a certain way, man realizes how little control he ultimately has. Someone sent me a video. Someone who I know who lives in Cape Coral sent me a video right outside of his house. Flood waters. That was in the Chab. There was a shark. There was a shark, right? So right in front of, not like a big shark, not like Jaws proportions, but I'm just saying, sometimes we all know that Hashem runs the world, but the moment that you see that the natural order is disrupted in such a dramatic way, it highlights to us how profoundly reliant we are on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I think that the full scope of this devastation is really only going to become apparent in the coming days. Now they're just starting to answer 911 calls.
I had a conversation today with Noah Solo, sent down an ambulance there today, or yesterday, and I had to speak to someone who was involved with it over there, and he cut the conversation because he says, I just got a call from somebody who said they can't find their mother. So he said, I can't talk to you. What I had to talk to them not nearly as important as that. So they're down there right now.
It's incredible. It's the whole thing. And the truth is, and right now all we see are the videos and the images, but the truth is the true scope of the devastation will unfold over the coming days and coming weeks. So we just hope that Amir Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu will just provide Yeshua. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Amir Hashem will give all of the residents of Florida the incredible chizuk, the incredible strength to be able to quite literally weather this storm and hopefully be able to rebuild in the weeks, in the months, and in the years to come. So with that, let us begin. Let's continue. Wow. Wow.
We're just beginning.
Incredible. Second course is now served. Right, this is Yonason, thank you. Wow, beautiful.
More competition.
Beautiful. Are those yours?
No.
Oh, this is Yonason. Wow. Okay. All right. I will say so.
Those might be phrasing.
Yeah. I don't know if those they appear too quickly. Listen, beautiful. Thank you. All right. We'll say so. The Piagetna doesn't stand a chance against egg rolls. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
If the Piagetna was here, he'd be like.
We're going to wait. We're going to pause. We're going to take a break.
We're also ending 3 minutes late.
It's true. The Piagetna would give people time to get their egg rolls. It's very true. Honestly, thank you. All right, so we'll say let's begin. No, thank you. Beautiful. So we'll say let's begin. So we are picking up. Actually, I want to pick up a little bit. We had actually gotten a little bit into Ostalid last week, but I'd like to pick up from there again. So again, if you're following along in the Sefer or even on the handout, it's page 13. Ostalid. So we'll say, so remember again, the Piaget's has been describing this idea that our entire goal is the ability to establish this clarity of thought. David Schwartz was just telling me, for those of you who are learning Mesilas Yesharim with us, and if you're not learning Mesilas Yesharim with us, it's kedai to get on board. Tomorrow we begin the second parak. And amazingly enough, the second parak is Zihirus, which is mindfulness. So David was remarking, and it's really true, that when you begin to learn the great Svarim, you begin to see that the concepts really all align. They're packaged in different ways. They're aligned they're presented in different ways, but ultimately, again, all incredibly profound. So we'll say, so let's go. Ostalid. Abalama be'emes ein lo leish machshava chazaka. So ask the Piagetna. So now that we've established, I will say that, now what's the goal? Remember again, I will say, if we go back to the beginning of this chapter, right? What's the goal? Remember, we're forming this chaburah. So right now, again, we're a larger chaburah. Our goal is, Emir Hashem, I really thought we were going to finish this sefer over Elul. Then I said, fine, maybe over Tishrei. Now I'm thinking Adar. Emir Hashem. But whenever, Adar Beis, right? Hopefully we'll declare another leap year, right? I call my face, all right? Okay, whatever, it's fine. So right now, remember, again, this is our larger chaburah. Of course, our goal is, Emir Hashem, once we finish this sefer, to branch off into smaller chaburas and literally become a chaburah of Bnai Machsha Tova. And what's our goal? Our goal is to create a chaburah that is there to create a sense of clarity, of mindfulness. And the Piazetzna explained that the greatest mistakes we make in life is because of shichacha, because we forget, we lose our way, right? We lose our clarity. So the Piazetzna writes over here in Ostalid, why is it that clarity of mind, why is it so difficult? Remember again, I will say, just to go back a little bit, right? So remember again, the Piazetzna really, we haven't really seen what clarity of mind actually means just yet. But here's what we know. We know that we know what a clarity of mind creates, right? Let's take a step back. What happens when you have clarity of mind? What do you have? God awareness. Excellent. Right? Shivisi Hashem lenegdi samid. So I don't know yet exactly what that clarity of mind means, but I know that once I get it, I live my life in a perpetual state of Shivisi Hashem lenegdi samid, God awareness. And in the words of Piazetzna, with clarity of mind and God awareness, what happens? I don't serve Hashem as a servant. Rather, how do I serve Hashem? As a son. Excellent. So now I know what it is that I'm working towards. So says the Piazetzna, so why is this clarity of mind so difficult? Why is it so difficult? Osdalit. Why do most of us not possess, he calls it this machshava chazaka, this strength of thought, this clarity of mind? Halo machshava ein ena seichel, shneimar lav she'en la moach v'seichel chad, v'lo pilpulim v'chakiros. So let's remember again last week's shir, so we dispelled a very important, commonly misheld truth. It wasn't good English, you should understand what I mean. In other words, that machshava is intellect. So remember again, the Piazetzna dispelled that. Machshava is not intellect. Intellect is intellect. Seichel is intellect. Machshava has nothing to do with intellect. So machshava has nothing to do with your memory or with your intellectual prowess, your ability to analyze or decide. Machshava has nothing to do with that. Remember, you're going to both say, well, according to the Piazetzna, what's machshava? Remember how he defined it? Emuna pshuta. Emuna pshuta. Machshava is just simple emuna. Right? Rak emuna pshuta ma'ashem anu darshimata. Ela shalote emunaso ne'elmabo. Rak bechinas vehemin b'Hashem v'yachshavah. Sheyiyeh choshev be'emunaso b'machshava rechava. Turn the page 14. Shememali es kol haguf. Ukimo shenamar od mizeh mirat Hashem lekamon. So we'll say, so now that I know that machshava, clarity of thought, this mindfulness, this awareness that the Piazetzna is describing has nothing to do with intellect, right? Nothing to do with intellect, but rather it's just emuna pshuta. So then why is it so difficult? See, I will say, if you tell me it's intellect, then I can understand why it's difficult. Why?
Because not everybody has one.
I'll say, this is a very important thing. Not everybody is a deep thinker. Right? This isn't a. In other words, and again, understand that's not a pigam. That's not. I was in a meeting today, related to a particular a student meeting, and one of the teachers was saying that this particular student, what was the word? He doesn't have depth. Doesn't have depth. So I was surprised to hear a teacher refer to a student like that. But I said, okay, what do you mean a student doesn't have depth? He's not an intellectual. I said, so 1 second. Don't say it doesn't have depth. I'm not an intellectual. I like to think that I have depth. Because depth, one of the manifestations of depth could be your intellect. But even a person who's not intellectual at all could be a very deep person. I could be deep because of emotions. I could be deep because of feelings. I could be deep because of so many things. So the Ramchal. So the Piazetzna says, I don't understand. Why is Machshava so difficult? If you told me it was intellect, okay, not everybody has intellect, fine, right? Pinchas, I think there's a show over here for you. Right, so at the end of this, if you tell me ultimately again, you don't want to miss out on the buffet. So I'm just, right, so, yes. So I'll say, so ultimately, again, if you tell me that it's intellect, so I can hear why it's so difficult. But Lamaisa, it's not intellect. So if it's not intellect, it's just Emunah Pshuta. I will say, again, the reason why Emunah Pshuta is called Emunah Pshuta is why? Because B'Pashtus, anyone could have it. It's Pashat, right? Pashat means simple. Simple Emunah means that even independent of my intellectual acumen or lack thereof, I have the ability to have it. So why is Machshava Tova so difficult? V'lama te'ader, we'll say page 14, second line down. Page 14. V'lama te'ader lo l'ishisa shu mibnei neviim min dimyon zeh u'machshava zu. The Piaget says, we'll say, who are we? We are the descendants of prophets, right? We are Bnai Nevi'im. So we'll say, which means we hail from significant stock, right? We come, each of us. By the way, this doesn't, even if you can't trace on your family tree to a particular Navi, to a particular Rebbe, to a particular Gadol, all of us hail from great people. We're all children of Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarif, Rachel, and Leah. We're all children. So we have these spiritual abilities. So why is it so difficult? And says the Piaget. So we read this piece last week a little bit, but I did it quickly, so I want to start from here again. Piaget gives a very simple answer. Pashit hu mipnei shelo hishtamish va'avad bo keroi. Both say it's very simple, says the Piaget. Do you know why we don't have? Machshava Tova? You know why we don't have strong Machshava, clarity of thought? Because we don't use the ability. We don't exercise our Machshava. I don't exercise my emunah pshuta. I don't exercise creating a sense and a state of mindful awareness of the Ribono Shel Olam. So you know what the Piaget is going to say? Like any other thing that you don't exercise, what happens? It atrophies. He goes on, he says, Gam kein tivo shel kol koach haguf. This is same with any physicality. Shebe'im eina mishtamshim va'ovdim imo yachlosh. If you have a particular muscle, if you don't flex the muscle, exercise the muscle, ultimately it atrophies. So that's number one. So it says the Piaget now. Do you want to know why? And I will say, it's interesting because I've spoken with a number of the members this year over the course of the week. And what's interesting is you could translate the words of the Piaget now, but to kind of like wrap your head around what he's talking about sometimes is a little bit elusive. But it's so strange. What's the only thing he's talking about? He's just talking about clarity of thought, mindful awareness of the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in everything in life. Also, I have to tell you something. The concept is not rocket science. So why do we have so much difficulty wrapping our head around it? Because the Piaget answers the question. That's because we don't practice it. So if you don't practice it, if I don't utilize this skill set, no different than if I stop practicing my foul shot, chances are, right, when the big game comes, I'm probably not going to make the basket because I haven't practiced. Anything you don't practice, by definition, falls into a state of atrophy. Not only that, he says, V'lod, elakivan shebegufo v'chushav, hu oved va'oses tzrachav, v'machshav to aruchnis shalamala mitzirei gufo, eino oso va'oved, as avodas gufo macheshes as machshavto. See, Rabbi say, listen to this. So, failure to exercise machshava, by definition, leads me to machshava atrophy. That by itself is bad. What compounds it? While at the same time, I'm not exercising my machshava, right? My mindfulness, my clarity of thought, right? What's happening on the other end? On the other end, the guf is being exercised, right? The physical, the material is being exercised, is being amplified. So now I'm harming the machshava on two levels. Number one, it's atrophying because I'm not exercising it. Number one, it's constantly being battered because the guf, the body, is trying to take center stage and become the dominant piece in my life. So you have these two forces. There's machshava atrophy, and then there's this fact that while the neshama is not being exercised, the guf is being exercised. I don't mean like in a literal sense, but I mean like dominance, or not dominance is the wrong word. Emphasis is being placed on the physical. Emphasis is being placed on the material. So that's being strengthened. Yet again, the machshava is not. So these are the two issues. These are the two issues ultimately that make achieving a state of machshava so incredibly difficult? So incredibly difficult. Now, I will say, here the Piaget says something fascinating. He says, Ubedavar kazeh. So therefore, I will say, ultimately, again, Ubedavar kazeh, mishtamshin gam harofin lachlosh ha'atzavim sheniskalkala v'nispagla machshavto. All right, so we have Dr. Solomon with us, so we'll have to see something very interesting here. So the Piaget says like this. So mental health, right? Mental health practitioner, says the Piaget, if someone is suffering, what he calls atzavim. We'll say, what's atzavim? Right? Sadness. But, so clinically, what would that be? Depression. Or atzavim also, even in modern Hebrew, could also be anxiety. So someone is suffering from depression or anxiety. So at least again in the early 1900s in Piagetna, Poland, how would they treat such a person? This is fascinating. He says, I'm sorry? They were right. First of all, most people are probably like that, right? I'm saying when you live with the specter of like what was going on there, right? You were just number 10 for the minyan, right? So listen to this. So the Piagetna says, this is fascinating. Miyatzim also l'shamesh rak bekoach gufo below machshava. I will say, what do we tell a person who's suffering from anxiety, or a person ultimately, again, who's suffering from depression? We tell them ultimately, think less. Try to turn off your machshava. Now, I will say, it's very easy to say, turn off your machshava to a person who's fine, right? I'm fine. Person suffering from anxiety, stop being anxious. Stop being anxious, right? Stop. Who sent this to me? Oh, right. I said this over at my pre-Rosh Hashanah shir. I was talking about the concept of just stop it. There's some things in life we could just stop if we choose. So I got a number of people sent me the clip. Who was the guy? Bob Newhart, right? When he played the therapist. It was old school, right? He played the therapist who's said, I'll cure whatever you need to cure in 3 minutes. And he kept screaming, stop it, right? So I'll say, so it's interesting. Something to it. Right? So I'll say, so now listen, so the Piaget says something amazing. He says, at least the way, now you have to understand deeper what he's saying is like this. That sometimes what happens is when a person is suffering from anxiety or depression, so at the end of the day, the only thing in their way is themselves, right? And is the reality that's happening in their head. Now, of course, again, it's a condition, it's a matzov. So for this person, this is the reality. So the Piaget says, times what we try to condition a person to do is to stop focusing on the thoughts which make you anxious. Stop focusing on Refocus. You know what I've seen this done often is also by OCD. Right? You're hyper focused on the hand washing, right? How can we take your mind off that? Right, that's a better idea, right? Refocus. So we'll say. So it says what the Piaget is saying is, what do we try to get a person to do? We try to get a person to go ahead and dull their koach hamachshava. So in the Piaget's mental health model, how do you dull? Right? Think less and focus more on your actions. Right? So focus less on what you're thinking and go ahead and focus more on what you're doing. And says the Piagetna, and I will say, so what is the de facto result of that? The de facto result of that is the koach hamachshava is weakened. That's the de facto result. So says the Piagetna, that's what happens to us all the time in life. In other words, we're not exercising the machshava. I'm not exercising that power. Therefore, by definition, that atrophies. Concurrently, again, I'm placing emphasis on the physical, on the material. So that's getting stronger. So now the machshava is literally pounded from both ends. Right? The machshava is atrophied and the guf is becoming stronger. He goes on, V'cheivan shekein, kisherotzim anu lifsoa psiagasa, zu, min nemichos haguf el avoda machshava, tzricha pashut lahotzi ulagalos banu machshava chazaka mechadash. And so therefore, again, the Piaget says that's why the first step in our avoda is going to be the most difficult one. Because what's the first step, Rabbi say? The first step is, and this is his lashon over here is so beautiful. Tzrichin pashut. You have to simply what you have to do is lahotzi, to go ahead and bring to life, ulagalos, to reveal banu within ourselves, machshava chazaka mechadash. Rabbi said, what I have to birth is a brand new machshava, or a brand new paradigm of machshava. Now, we don't know what that means yet. Right? I don't know what that means, or for that matter, I don't know how you do it. But sometimes we're both saying, sometimes in life you have to know. We spoke about this last week also. Sometimes you have to know what your goal is, right? You have to know what it is that you need to do, even before you know exactly how you're going to accomplish it. So now that I know that the reason I have such difficulty with machshava, we'll say, isn't it incredible? Isn't it incredible over here? We're not talking about how could I become better in, Hilchos Shabbos, Hilchos Lashon Hara. It's just not, he's talking about over here, how do I reach a level where I think about God? I don't think about God enough. Forget about the mitzvos for a second. But I'm saying place it on the side. Forget about mechanistic or behavioral Yiddishkeit. We're talking about Judaism 101, which is to have an awareness of Hashem in every step I take in life. And says the Piaget, isn't it incredible? I could learn Daf Yomi every single day, right? And go out finish us, right? I could do Mishnah Yomi, I could learn Mesilas Yesharim, I could keep this mitzvah, keep that, enhance my observation. I could do all this stuff. And you know what I struggle with most? Thinking about God. Isn't that wild? Isn't that absolutely wild? Meanwhile, who am I doing all this stuff for? Right? And I'll impress my wife, right? What am I? So in other words, but I will say, but it's so true. It's so true. Give me a Maseches Ksuvis, all right? Now, man, I could go through that block by block, no problem. You want me to have God awareness? I don't even know what to do. Right? In other words, I'm not Piaget's. Now you're gonna hold my hand through this, right? Because I don't even know how to do that. I don't know how to transition from being a servant to a son. But says the Piaget, that's why the first step in this process is like this burst of machshava. Somehow I have to take the atrophied koach machshava. I need to exercise it. I need to flex it. I need to retone it, and then I need it to come to light. Andrew, question.
I already wanted not to ask it. Is it not dangerous to think too much about the
so good. We're going to talk about this. Excellent. I'm just saying good, right. We're going to talk about, isn't there a danger in thinking too much? Again, we'll talk about analysis paralysis also. Piaget is going to talk about it. And by the way, the simple answer is like everything else in Yiddishkeit, middle ground, right? You can't, because remember again, if you spend your life thinking about God, right? You sit here with a tub of chili and egg rolls and you just, I'm thinking about Hashem, right? That's all, I'm just thinking about Hashem. So that's good for a shir on a Thursday night. If you don't have in Shachris, right? And you're not learning Torah, and you don't give tzedakah, and you don't do chesed, because you're thinking about Hashem, obviously you've missed the boat as well. But you have to do all of those things and not think about Hashem, so we're going to come out somewhere in the middle. So let's go weiter. Says the Piaget, so incredible. He says, he compares this. So really, what we're going to have to do is like this burst of machshava. We're going to have to birth a brand new machshava construct for ourselves. And he gives a beautiful mashal. He says much in the same way. Kimo, that's such a beautiful mashal. Kimo shemotziim koach halicha b'yeled. The same way that we teach a little child to walk, right? Hayedei hergel shemargilim oso laleches. So I will say, how do you teach a child to walk? Right? You don't say, you're crawling, stop it, right? Get up and walk, right? In other words, that lamaisi, you teach the child to walk. So Piaget says, thinking about Hashem is no different than walking, right? At the end of the day, it's a process. It's just a process. By the way, I'll put in one more piece, and we'll see this as well later on, that the concept also of comparing it to walking is also quite beautiful, because you know what happens with walking? At a certain point in time, what has to happen? The parent has to let go of the child, and the child, and it's difficult for a parent, right? Because every parent wants to hold on to their kid. I don't want my child to fall, but if I don't let go, the child can't walk. The child might fall. We're going to see in this process also, Rabbosai, there is a piece of it that requires us to push ourselves out of our comfort zone, right? And to go ahead and push ourselves into uncharted waters, uncharted areas. Kilodai shetiskala banu machshava ilah shelo hirgashu mikodem ela shegam arise chushi agof ilachshu idea avod machshava. Now, here the Piaget says something else, and he says there's another piece to this. We're going to see that it's not enough. See, I will say let's kind of bring this full circle. So the Piaget said, let's go back a little chazara. Why do we have such problem generating machshava tova? Why do we have problems? Right? What's the reason? Why do we have problems? No. Right. Number one, physicality. right? We'll call that. We'll go fine. Number one. Let's keep that number two. Number one.
We don't exercise.
Right, Machshava atrophy. Machshava atrophy. Number two, the guf, right, the physical, the material becomes the dominant influence in my life. So remember again, to become a ben Machshava Tova, I have to address both of those dynamics. So now we're going to talk about again that I'm going to need this burst of brand new Machshava. How, when, what we have to see. But at the same time, I'll say, what else do I have to do? I have to recalibrate my emphasis on the physical and on the material. That's part of this process also. Because if I don't weaken the physicality, and when we say weaken, we don't mean literally physically to weaken ourselves, but the emphasis, right? If I don't go ahead and kind of switch the emphasis a little bit, and switch the focus a little bit, away from the guf, away from the... I want to be clear, not in an ascetic way. Remember again, the Piaget is a chassidus Rebbe. One of the beautiful things that the Baal Shem Tov highlighted was the idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not want you to be an ascetic. There's a famous Machsha of a chassid once came over to the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. It's actually told about a couple of different Rebbes. Came over to the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, and he told the Baal Shem Tov he committed an Aveira. And it was a doozy. It was like a serious one. Right? So the Baal Shem Tov said, so tell me, so what are you doing for your tshuva? So the man said, I'm doing for the tshuva. I immerse in a frozen lake every day, 3 times a day. I roll around in the snow without going with my clothing. It's all these things to afflict myself physically. So the Baal Shem Tov said, why are you punishing your body for the decisions you made? Right? In other words, so your body did. It's not like your body kidnapped you and did this. And that was the derech of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh and the derech of the Chassidim, which is why chassidus in general spoke to the masses and still to this very day does, much more than other streams of thought that were much more ascetic and austere in their approach. No difference, I will say that, again, if we were learning certain Litvish Torah, I don't know that making a l'chaim before the shir would go so well, right? But l'maisa, in a shir in chassidus, it's perfect. It's perfect, because you think about it, what, you're going to make a l'chaim, you're going to make a little l'chaim before you learn Torah? Isn't that antithetical? You're trying to build in a shama, and here you're literally, what's the word? Not saturating, Saturate, right? Good. Saturate sounds too intense. You're right. You're imbibing. It's like a stira. It's like it's not. It's not. The body is a beautiful partner to the soul, as long as the body knows its place. See, the problem in life is the body likes to think that it is the dominant partner, right? And you know what the neshama is? The neshama gives sweat equity. Neshama, okay, fine. You give life and everything, but I'm the guy who gives the money. I'm the capital partner. So that's the problem when the guf likes to portray itself as I am the dominant. I love you. You're great, but know your place. And it's our job to say no, just the opposite. Guf, you're the silent partner. Why? We'll call you when we need you. We call you when we need you, right? You're very important because but neshama is what drives us. So therefore, the Piaget says, while we're birthing this new model of machshava, at the same time, we're also going to have to diminish the guf. But again, I don't want anyone to get scared by that term, because again, it's not ascetic. Diminish the guf, Rabbi, has to do with priorities. Rabbi, if you think about it, how many times in life do we make decisions based on what's good physically for us, or what feels good for us, even though I know it's not the right spiritual decision. I know it's not the right thing, but I just can't get out of my own way. So the Piaget goes on about say, it's incredible. Oshei. V'hinei. Supposed to let's at least start this piece tonight. V'hinei. L'ch'ora ha'isha Yisraeli ha'maschil ha'pashit shelo tama shamachshav dimyonei la. So now again, so you'll have a simple Jew, right? A simple Jew. And a simple Jew he's learning the Sefer, and I will say when he refers to the simple Jew, I think about myself with this. I learn this, and I say, all sounds beautiful. All sounds fantastic. I sign me up. I want it. But yet, he says, Yishal she'ila chazaka l'chora. You can ask a very stark question on this, which is, Ma kol ha'charodas ha'kavod shanu charedim likras ha'machshav ha'dimyon lo'tziem u'l'shach l'lambanu. Eza machshava yesh banu. Eza machshava bichlal yesh banu. Ula eza davrahim muchsharim. Shabbos say, here's the problem. Says the Piaget. Okay, we finished Os Dalit. We're all excited. Yeah, machshava tova. Amen. Birth this new machshava. what exactly does it look like? In other words, and how am I using this machshava? Because Rabbi say, if machshava is not intellect, which we've established, right? Machshava is not intellect. So if it's not intellect, then what is it? Then what is it? Rabbi says, here's fascinating. If I were to ask you, if it's not intellect, what is it? What is it? Emotion. Good. What else can it be? Right? Hashem awareness. So that we know, right? That's our definition. I'm saying, I can give that definition. I don't know what Hashem awareness means yet. So how am I defining machshava? So we've got emotion. What else? Imagination. So I will say, this is interesting. So the Piagetna says, most people, when they're reading this, assume that machshava means imagination, which, by the way, makes sense with God awareness also. Because what's God awareness? And I was supposed to say, sometimes I could tangibly feel like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, other times I can't. So I think that God awareness means that even when I don't necessarily feel Him, I use my power of imagination to somehow imagine myself in His presence. So the Piagetna says, well, here's the problem when it comes to imagination. Both sides. What's the problem with imagination? What's the problem?
Mind go off the rails.
Yeah, absolutely. What else? So the problem with imagination is most people don't have it. Most people don't have imagination, which is why I both say why most people don't really accomplish all that much more than going to work and coming home from work and paying their bills and buying a house and having which are all nice things. Which is all nice things. What about like bigger things in life? What about, is there more? I never even think about more. Well, why not? I don't know. I just never thought about it. Because I will say most people, most of us, don't possess real imagination. And by the way, when we do utilize our imagination, we use our imagination for totally wrong things, right? How do we use our imagination in like a wrongful way, right? Daydreaming, or to say a little bit differently, we use the koach of imagination to create an escape from reality. I will say it's an amazing thing. Like if you drill down in the world of addictions, right, or even not in the world of addictions, there's so many illicit things that are just like in arm's reach, right? Everything is accessible to us. And yet, I know that things are wrong. I know that things shouldn't be done. But yet, so often we're drawn to things. And deep down, about saying, whether they realize it or not, it's because these things represent an escape. So I could use imagination, but my imagination is often not used in terms of how to build my life better. My imagination is often used to allow me to escape from what is, so I don't have to deal with it. I don't want to have to confront for whatever the reason. My reality is too stressful, my reality is too difficult, I don't like my life, whatever it might be. So instead of using an imagination to say, well, let me imagine what life could be. Let me imagine what it could be, and let me work towards that. Instead, I just construct different things that I could run away from. So I'm not really running to anything. I'm running from something. So the Piagetna says something amazing. He says, here's the problem. Machshava often means imagination, or people think it means imagination. And what am I supposed to imagine? Look what he writes. So I guess I could imagine stuff. I don't know. I could imagine, I want to put an addition on my house. I could imagine like what that looks like. Whatever else there might be. Right? I could imagine like eitz v'evens. I could imagine stuff. Rak tzuras umachshavos gufnios. In other words, and more for that also what the Piagetna says is, my imagination doesn't really work in the spiritual realm. Right? My imagination works in the realm of physicality. So, I could imagine like when I have a stressful day, like, what that beach looks like that I want to be at, where no one else, like I can imagine physical stuff, but spiritual things, I don't know that I could really imagine those things. He goes on, he says, Afilu b'shasha omdim l'spalo. We'll say, listen to this, even when we daven, remember again, and when we daven, we are lifnei Hashem. So remember again, Shmona Esrei is a dialogue with the divine. I'm literally lifnei Hashem. I take my 3 steps back, my 3 steps forward, and I am entering into the presence of Hashem. I am literally having a conversation with the Melech Malchei Malchim, the King of Kings. Shafilu im machshavasenu chazaka az v'rotzim anu lachshov machshava elokis gam kein chasra lanu ma lachshov. So I'll say it's interesting. if you ask a person, what are you imagining during your Shmona Esrei? Well, first of all, probably don't ask most people that question, right? Probably not a good idea, right? I'll say, but you ask a person, right? What do you imagine? So we'll say, even often if I'm davening with kavana, so often what I'm imagining is what? Well, sometimes I'm not using my imagination at all. I'm using my mind. I'm using my intellect. And if I am imagining, I'm imagining, again, the articulation of my petitions with kavana, with understanding, with deep thought. Do I imagine a construct in which I am standing before the Ribono Shel Olam? So again, the Piagetz says something amazing. He says, listen to this. He says, Gam kein chasul al-akshav, ki davar gufni, shenetzayres kvodi yisparach be'eze dimyon nabosei. Here's what's interesting. So you say, sure, I imagine myself standing before God. Here's the problem I will say. What does that mean? So you imagine like an old man on a throne, sitting in front of you. It sounds great. There's only one problem. It's a biblical prohibition to imagine God. Only small detail, right? In other words, let's say, so going ahead and imagining HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a physical form, essentially again, like in a physical form, he writes over here, So as I saw again, so to imagine HaKadosh Baruch Hu as a physical being and to see myself physically before a physical God, that is prohibited. On the other hand, Uladamos V'lachshav Tzura, page 15. Uladamos Tzura Ruchnis Mufshita Me'olam Hazeh Ein Machshavto Muchshra V'yichola. Alright, so we'll say, so if I'm not imagining God as and by the way, I want to point out something interesting. So the Rambam says that in general, this is one of the 13 principles of faith, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has no physical form. No physical form. And ascribing physical form to God, the Rambam says, is also is prohibited. But I will point out to you something very interesting, which is, if you notice, there are two occasions where HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed his presence to Klal Yisrael. Right? What were the two occasions? Yam Suf and Har Sinai. In both of those situations, by Yam Suf, the Medrash says that the Ribono Shel Olam appeared to Klal Yisrael as a young, valiant warrior. And at Har Sinai, he appeared to them as a wizened old man. So I just want to point out something very interesting, that the Ribono Shel Olam in two mass revelations did not take on physical form, because that would be heretical. That's not true. Chashmonahu doesn't do that. But he did somehow present an image that Klal Yisrael saw. Now understand, that's because we were theologically immature. Right, that was because we had no like ruchnius fortitude, like we didn't have anything. So how do you get at people who don't understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu, don't understand religion, don't understand? So that you have to give them something to relate to. But that was what we call like a hora'ah shah, and it has a good English translation for hora'ah shah. Like a temporary emergency dispensation. You know, so God made his own temporary emergency dispensation. But in general, says the Piagetz, when imagining Hashem, I don't imagine Hashem with physical form. Okay, so if I'm not imagining Hashem with physical form, then what? So we'll say, so to imagine Hashem as a spiritual being, totally removed from anything physical, most of us are not yet equipped to be able to do that. I don't understand what that means. I will say, the truth is, we do understand what it means, and I'll tell you why. What he means, we don't understand what it means on a consistent basis. I will say, I would hope, and I would venture to say, that every single one of us has had, hopefully, at least one moment in life, hopefully many, many more than one, where you felt the presence of the Ribono Shel Olam. I felt it. And if somebody were to ask you to describe it, you wouldn't be able to describe it. You can't describe it. But you felt it. And again, all of us, for some of us, it's times of simcha. For some of us, it's times of incredible adversity and difficulty. Or for some of us, it's just in the middle of something that doesn't even feel all that holy. You feel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You feel him. So the Piagetz says, the problem is, we'll say, very often, how does that feeling occur? How does it occur?
Drinking.
Right, drinking. Spoken like a true bacher. That was Noam Schoenfeld. Right. We'll send that to your parents. So I'll tell you something interesting. I'll tell you something fascinating. Okay, I wasn't going to say drinking, but maybe like right, the number one on the Family Feud thing, right? Drinking, right? So I think more often than not, when that happens, how does it happen? It happens. I don't know the word I'm looking for. Not spontaneously, but unannounced. Unannounced. It's just like it happens. I didn't plan for it. Right? It's not like I went to the mikvah, I said Sefer Tehillim, Ribbon Shalom, I'm ready. Usually, what just happens is, it just happens. Shabbos say, which is such a fascinating thing. Because what the Piagetna is saying is, so I know what he's talking about. I know it. Because I felt it. But I don't know that I've actually ever been able to bring it on. So I've experienced it happening to me. But says the Piagetna, the difficulty is, if now, right, let's say I'm going to daven, and now, okay, I want to have this Machsha experience of feeling in the presence of Hashem. Okay, any minute, right? Any minute. Meanwhile, by the way, the Chaz is already up to Valatzion, right? And any minute now, it's coming. I feel it. It's coming. So I'll say that's the difficulty. Says if I will say, by the way, not now. By the way, you know what we're working towards. Because I will say, think back to that moment in your life where you felt blanketed by the Ribono Shel Olam's presence. Think about that moment and how that felt. And what it means to be a Ben Machshava Tova is the ability to create that feeling at all times. Now again, it doesn't mean it has the same intensity at all times. That we know. But a level of God awareness. That's what it means, God awareness. I feel in the presence of Hashem. I feel the Ribono Shel Olam's arms around me. I feel His hand in mine leading me down the right path. I feel it. That's what it means to be a Ben Machshav Tov. But the challenge, now I got it. The challenge is, I know exactly what he's talking about. But yet, despite my best efforts, I can never induce that feeling. That feeling seems to just come at me in different situations in life. But when I try to recreate, I think I mentioned this before. A couple years ago, I had a very difficult life situation that was really like causing me incredible pain, and it was it was a very hard time in my life, but it was also like one of the best times of ruchnius. I remember it was like a crisis. I was walking around with the Sefer Tehillim the whole day, and literally whenever I had a minute, I would just open up because it was a situation where I could do nothing about. I was profoundly helpless, and when I was finally willing to accept that I'm absolutely helpless, sometimes it's hard because I'm like a shtickle micromanager and like this and that and that. So to admit, you wouldn't know, right? So thank you. So to admit first I'm not in control, and then to yield back control, but then to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu's got me. He's got me. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I don't know what's going to be. I don't know how it's going to resolve. And I will tell you, it was one of the best periods of ruchnius in my life, and I tried so many times to go ahead and recreate it, and I've been unable to. To the point, and now it sounds strange, because you never think to yourself, wow, I'm looking forward to the next crisis, right? Chas v'shalom, I don't want the crisis at all. But there's something so profound in this idea that I can't recreate for myself, that moment of connection that was so beautiful for me. I emerged from that crisis. It resolved, but more than the resolution was I felt like I was best friends with the Ribono Shel Olam. And I felt that we had this bond. And I felt that He's got me. And never in my life have I ever felt like that. Never in my life. And it was only a period of a couple of weeks. Never in my life. I can't to this day. During on Rosh Hashanah, I can't recreate it. Nilan Yom Kippur, I can't. There are other beautiful feelings, but I can't. So the Piagetna says, this is what we're struggling with. So that's what I want. The problem is, how do I proactively generate that in my Machshav? Let's finish the paragraph. Imkein, lama lana lahach lechazek laharchiv uleshachlel es machshavosenu ha'im Machshava v'dimyon shebechalosam rak lachshov ledamos meharbe batim anoshim mishar dvarim gufnim keshem misrach v'myo'ilu lalos es ha'ish ulamido lefnei kisei kvodo. So now all I can really do with my imagination, ultimately, again, is what? Is to imagine physical things. So is that what imagination is to be used for? He says, Ulafi, shekal apashet yichola hisravchus machshava kizu, od lahashlich es ha'adam lide hazia, v'lasos lebal dimyon shav. So I will say, the problem, says the Piazetzna, is that often the only way we know how to use our imagination is in the realm of physicality. And because the only way, so I will say, so now again, see what the Piazetzna is doing is like this. If machshava is not intellect, if it's not intellect, okay, so intellect's out, it's not intellect. So what could it be? Again, it's like Baruch said, it could be emotion, but says the Piazetzna, it's got to be more than emotion. It has to be imagination. Because my goal ultimately, again, is to feel like a son and not a servant. My goal is to feel God awareness. My goal is to feel the presence of Hashem. That's not just, that is emotion, but it's also imagination. And the Piazetzna really gets to the core of the issue. And the problem is, Rabosai, most of us only know our imagination in the realm of the physical. And because the imagination has never been exercised in the realm of the spiritual, we don't understand how to become Bnei Machshava Tova. Now, Rabbi said, we've gotten to the crux of the issue. How do I use my imagination to cultivate a sense of Machshava? Rabbi said, I'm going to leave you on the cliffhanger. So we're going to stop over here for tonight. Yes, Rabbi Chaim.
Maybe a premature, but is the goal to have Lemuna Pshuta, and what exactly does that mean?
Yes. So remember again. So
What's the definition mean?
So the answer is that definition is going to evolve. But the Piazetzna is going to say the definition of Emunah Pshuta is that you feel Hashem with you at all times in life. That's the definition. In other words, Emunah Pshuta is God awareness. It's Shivisi Hashem L'negdi Samid. So ultimately, again, to become a Ben Machshava Tova, you need Emunah Pshuta, which is a constant and uninterrupted awareness of the presence of Hashem in your life. Now what the Piazetzna is saying is, okay, but how do you make that come alive? Imagination. How do I take an imagination that has been so often undersold and just used for the physical and transform it into a vehicle for spiritual advancement? I will say, Miras Hashem b'shah tova mitzlachas next week. Shkayach, I will say. Shkayach. Gimach chasim tov, everyone. I will say, I don't know if anyone said that. We davened married before. If anyone, if there's enough.